and she is a third generation of American. She moved to Arizona in 1954 at the age of 4 years old. She moved to the east side of Tucson in August of 1960. She attended the St. Joseph's Academy Villa? Okay, I wasn't sure if they said VI. That's Spanish. Carondelet High School, 1964 to 1968. That was right behind where St. Joseph's Hospital is today. She attended the University of Arizona, the University of Idaho, Western New Mexico University, and New Mexico State. Wow, good job. Earning a master's degree in education, specializing in bilingual education as a second language, gifted and general special education. She taught in New Mexico and Arizona for a total of 33 years. Wow. Good job. She is the mother of 4, grandmother to 21, and a great grandmother to 6, soon to be to 4. Soon to be 4. Sorry, 3, soon to be 4. Beautiful children. She has enjoyed doing volunteer work in our community as a crisis counselor for Pima County Victim Witness Program, a peer counselor for beginning experience for divorce, widowed and separated, a foster mom for dogs with SAFE, Save the Animals for youth, from euthanasia, a quilter in Corpus Christi Quilt Ministry, and the Tucson Quilter Guide sewing to fill the needs for the less fortunate. So with all that, wow, please join me in welcoming Yvonne Flores.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so very much for coming. I'm really honored to have all of you here. To begin with, I entitled this Remembrances of the 60s. And as she told you, I'm from New Mexico, 3rd generation. I didn't learn to speak English until I was 4. When we moved to Arizona, we went to live in Silver Bell. Silver Bell, well, the reason I put this in is the historian, it's your perspective. Because I thought Silver Bell was a beautiful place because they used to come, the houses used to come on flatbeds, and they were manufactured here in Tucson, and they came in all colors, and they went right in front of our house, and they dropped them on foundations. I was 4 years old, and it was like a bowl of jelly beans with all kinds of colors. And then somebody writes about Silver Bell being of the hellhole of Arizona, so I disagree. We moved from Silver Bell a year later, and we went to San Manuel, and I will tell you I'm an adventurer because that's where I drove my first car solo with my little sister in the car. I was 5 years old. My dad parked it at the top of the hill. My sister hit the gear into neutral. My father forgot to put the brake on, and we started rolling. I jumped over, drove the car yelling, "Help, help, help," and some neighbor saw me, jumped out there, got into the car and drove it back up the street. So I have also considered myself an adventurer, 5 years of age. We moved to Tucson in 1956, and we lived on Ebner Place. And Ebner Place was where it's west of I-19. Now I-19 did not exist, so I used to walk to school at C.E. Rose that was on 12th Street. Okay, and the reason I put this slide in as part of my presentation is because it was so different from coming to the east side of town. When I went to C.E. Rose, it was a school with basically a lot of Hispanic children. There were no large grocery stores nearby. We had to go to Southgate Shopping Center, which was out there by the freeway and 12th Avenue. It was the only little shop that my dad would go get cigarettes was in front of the VA hospital. That was the closest store to go to. And we had dirt roads, and we had scorpions, and we had rattlesnakes, and my mother had allergies, so we consequently had to move out of the neighborhood for her health. And so we went to the east side of town. That's what the classrooms looked like. You know, in those days, the little class with the desks and everything and the blackboards. Okay, hold on a second. There we go. This is the east side of town. This is Hoffman Park. It is still, this tree right here, that still was there when I was little. We used to walk across from here all the way this way to get to Bonilla School. We had a neighborhood park with green grass, and we had sidewalks, and we had paved streets, and we had a bus line that went at the end of the block. So we were very happy to live in this neighborhood. And so we moved into the neighborhood, and I'll show you what the house looked like. Oh. Selling cars, and then from there he created Canyon Ranch. And so that was our next door neighbor. Now when we moved into the neighborhood, it was a Jewish neighborhood. The Sapiros lived there, the Zenguts, well anyway, when we moved into the neighborhood, I'm with my little sister. She goes outside to play. I'm with my mother. I'm helping her unpack. And then my little sister comes in the house and she says, "Mom, are we Mexican?" And my mom says, "Why do you ask?" And she said, "Well, Connie Thomas asked me, are you Mexican?" And my mom said, "Well, what did you tell her?" She said, "No, I told her I'm not Mexican, I'm Catholic." Now, that's the only distinction we knew in our house because Grandma was Protestant and we were Catholic. Nobody ever talked about being Mexican. So my sister didn't know, but I did know because when we went to go visit Grandma, I remembered going from San Bernardino. We were coming down I-19, hardly anything there. I don't know if you took I-8 or something, but it was just pure desert. We had gotten a late start, and all of a sudden we're hungry. And so my dad decides to stop in a little diner that has a gas pump and a little cafe. We go in there and man, I'm starving. And my dad says, we sit down and my dad says, "What do you want to eat?" And I went, "Oh, I want, I don't know, because we never went out to eat that often." He said, "If you want a hamburger?" And I said, "Yes." "French fries?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What do you want to drink?" I thought, boy, I'm getting it good here. "Can I have a milkshake?" And he said, "Yes." So I'm sitting there waiting for this wonderful meal. We've been waiting there a while. My mother's holding my little sister in her arms because she's the baby. And then my dad said to the waitress, "Excuse me, what was that sign that was out front?" And she said, "Whites only." And my dad said, "Well, if they can't eat here, neither can we." And so we left. Now, I, being 5 years old, was quite upset because I wanted that hamburger and French fries. So that was my first lesson on racism. During that time, these were the things that we would see in our communities around the United States. Mexicans or Spaniards, okay? And you can also see the quality of the drinking fountains because that was the way it was in the 50s. And so that's how I learned about differences. But in my neighborhood, it was different. We had a multicultural neighborhood on the east side of town. I learned about dreidels, I learned to play the game, and we knew about menorahs, and we celebrate Hanukkah was a big thing in the neighborhood. We had tamales, and my mother was known as the best bean burro making lady in the neighborhood. The kids would line up, because we didn't have Mexican restaurants in this end of town. So the kids would line up at the back door during the summer and say, "Can we have a burrito?" And so I was very good at making tortillas. So I would make tortillas, and beans were really cheap. So Mom didn't mind having all the kids come over and have bean burritos at lunchtime. We also we shared a lot of our culture together, and I think that made me a better teacher later on in the future. Okay. One of my first memories, when we came to the neighborhood, I went to Bonilla's elementary school. And one of the first things I remember was going on a Saturday to the school with my mom and dad in a big long line, and they were giving out these little sugar cubes. And they were the polio sugar cubes that would prevent us from getting polio. And there you can see the picture of the iron lungs that they had for those that were suffering from that illness. Now, just an FYI here, St. Mary's had the first iron lung in the state of Arizona. Okay. My other memory of Bonilla's elementary school was the nuclear threat. Oh my goodness, we had on Saturday morning at 1 p.m., the air raid sirens would come on. This is what the sirens looked like. They would blare at 1 o'clock. You know when 1 o'clock was. And you were supposed to practice what you would do in case we were attacked. In case of school, we had practice. Like you had fire drills, or we had air raid drills. And then we would get in the hallway, and we had to get down the ground, cover our heads. And I remember thinking, then another great memory about Bonilla School were the school safety patrols. In those days, we didn't have teachers out on duty, and we didn't have crossing guards. The students that were model students and behaved and followed the rules were able to become student safety patrols. And those students were out on the playground. We had to cover the gates so the kids didn't get out. So there was a person there. We had a person on Swan Road crossing kids, and they stopped the traffic and crossed the kids. There weren't any teachers out there. And if there was a disagreement in the playground, the students were the mediators. We had our little notebook, and we'd say, okay, now why are you guys fighting? What's the problem here? And then if it was something that they couldn't resolve, then we'd walk them up to the office so that there wasn't a fight. Now, if somebody threw blows and they were hitting each other, then we would stop the fight and say, you need to go to the principal's office, and we would walk in the principal's office and she'd take care of the problem. So it was and I think we've lost that, where children can take that personal pride of saying, this is my school. To go to the bathroom, oh my gosh, there was a patrol outside. You go into the bathroom, you come out, the patrol goes in, checks it out, it's dirty, they call you, hey, you come back, clean up this mess. Okay, so we took care of our school. So that was a wonderful memory there, teaching experience. Okay, after 33 years, I can reflect back to looking at my first teaching job. Mrs. Hurt, my teacher, was a widow, recent widow, because I caught her crying one time. And her husband was a fireman. And she taught us to sing the song, Let There Be Peace on Earth and Let It Begin With Me. That was the favorite song that I sang with my mother. Hold on. In 5th grade, principal comes in with this young man. His name, Art Myers, okay? And Art Myers, oh, I get to sit next to him the rest of the year. She puts him right next to my desk, not across the hallway, on like an aisle. No, he's right smack next to my table. And she informed me that Art was adopted from Mexico. He doesn't speak English, and I would like you to translate everything for him so he can follow along in class and learn. What a job. Anyway, he was a really nice boy. He should have been at the junior high, but they brought him down because, unbeknownst to me, I was the only one in the school that spoke Spanish fluently. And there wasn't anybody at the junior high that was going to sit next to him all day long either, because there wasn't anybody over there that could speak Spanish. So I got my first student. He learned to speak English so well that they double promoted him at the end of the year. He went to school at Rincon. He worked at Safeco, which was, you remember where the Mervyn's used to be there on Craycroft and Broadway? Well, where Hobby Lobby is now, well, that was Safeco. It was like a discount store. You packed your own groceries, but you could go in there and shop. He worked there. And then he enlisted in the Army, and he got married. He had a daughter named Olivia. She was 2 years old. And I saw him the last time at Mass at St. Joseph's. It was during the week. And then he was deployed to Vietnam. About 3 months later, I read in the newspaper that Art Myers had been killed in Vietnam. He was my escort to my first formal at the villa. We also had, hold on, you probably may not be familiar with these. These were POW bracelets that we wore. I wore a POW bracelet for Colonel Melvin Killian. His daughter was in my sophomore class. And Nora Booth is sitting right over there. Raise your hand, Nora. She was in my sophomore class at that time and probably remembers Bridget Killian. Clamp that my mother would stand there because I had to feed the machine because she couldn't do it. And then she'd have to hit that to let it loose so I wouldn't break my arm. But when we moved to the east side of town, in its little cubby, they had a place for a washing machine like this, but they didn't have room for a dryer, so it ended up being out in the shed. And I guess maybe they figured because it was going to be too hot to have a dryer in the house. So we also got a mixer, which was really nice. And I don't know if you know what this thing is.
Mangle.
Oh yes, it was the iron right, mangle iron. It was to save you work wrong because everything, we didn't have polyester then. So you ended up having to have everything out of cotton. So my father thought this was a great invention because now I learned how to use this machine, would have to iron his handkerchiefs and his socks and his underwear and his t-shirts, and we ironed the sheets and the pillowcases and the tablecloths and the towels. Oh my gosh, it was so much work. And then the worst part about it was after you washed everything and it dried, then you had to sprinkle it with water and starch and then stick it in the refrigerator so it wouldn't smell. And then you had to pull it out of the refrigerator in these little bundles that they made and then go ahead and wash everything up. And you're laughing because you remember. The wage then, the minimum wage was $1 an hour at that time. Today, compared to our money, it would be $10.60. I was hired at the age of 11 to start babysitting, and I earned a whole 25 cents an hour watching 4 kids, and they were toddlers. It was difficult. Anyway, also if you, pardon?
I only got 15 cents.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess that you were probably, well, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you that if you look at the figures up there, you will see there was a great discrepancy between the wages of women and men. And most of the women that did work did not work full-time. They worked only part-time because they were still needed in the home. Okay, and how many of you have a Cruise Speedway? Go downtown, there you go, Tucson Boulevard, all the way to Craycroft, and then you hung a U-turn, drove through Johnny's restaurant that was in the corner, and that's Johnny's there. They had car hops there, and people could park and eat in the back. And then you'd pull through Johnny's, go right back west on Speedway till you got Tucson Boulevard and hang a U-turn. And then on the way, there was the Blue Note, Embers, nightclubs, and there were a couple of restaurants along the way. Kids would pull over the side of the road and visit with their friends if they wanted to, and then keep on going. Gas was only 50 cents, so it was a good pastime. But it was also known as the ugliest street in the USA. And our dear mayor referred to it as that, and it actually was published in a newspaper, which we were not very happy about, being known that we had the ugliest street in the nation. Whoops. It was also the time, the 60s was the time of the sexual revolution. My mother, I was too young and innocent to go to a lot of this stuff, but she did take us to go see The Sound of Music. We rode the bus downtown. It was playing at the Fox Theater. West Side Story was also a musical at that time, but also we had movies like Rosemary's Baby, The Graduate, there was Peyton Place. I was not allowed to do any of that. And I got a really, really bad bloody nose. My blood doesn't clot very well, so I was bleeding and hemorrhaging, and my parents panicked. They knew that the hospital was there, was opening, so they rushed me to St. Joseph's Hospital, and I remember my dad was banging on the door to get in, and they opened up the door, and they went in, and I'm in with him, and there weren't any doctors there. There were just nurses stocking up all the shelves. And my dad, they said they couldn't help me, so they took care of me as best they could, and then they sent me down to St. Mary's, and I got my nose packed. So I can say I was actually the first patient they ever had at that hospital. Okay, if you notice right here, see right there, that was all cleared out. We actually played baseball there, kickball there, and we flew our kites, and I'm sure that that was a sight for the patients to see from the hospital. So you can see from our school, we see it was nothing but desert here, and our baseball field was right here, and there was the hospital. And there was no, the library hadn't been built there yet, okay? And then when they started doing landscaping, this is kind of what it looked like, okay? And this was, oh my gosh, our school library was very small, so when we came to this part, to the library, oh my gosh, it was a treasure. We could do all our research here because we had like debate teams, we had mock United Nation, and we also met our friends here. It was a place to gather. This is Sister Thomas Clare, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her because she loved this library. She was our sophomore teacher, and you can see she's standing right there opening the door in full habit, and there she is, and there's Diane Fink, and Tina Jo Emery, she's a judge in San Francisco. But anyway, Sister Thomas Clare says it's only a 5-minute trot to the Wilmot Public Library, all in one period's time. And man, she did run us down here and ran us back. And she showed us how to find, the microfiche machine, the card catalog that we had to use in those days. This is a better picture, and as I'm telling you, Nora Booth is in here. She was my classmate. There's Nora, and there's me, and there's Sister, and that was actually part of a picture that I took of our yearbook. Students and said, I need food, what can you bring to help feed the migrants as they're in town? Working for rights. She was really a political advocate. This is her campaigning. She was elected to the Arizona House of Representatives after getting permission from her order. She was re-elected 3 times, and she was an advocate for voting rights and social justice. She was one of the first nuns to ever go into political work and go into politics. And then she was also the last, because after that they made a rule that you couldn't do that when you were serving as part of an order. And she was also in 1982 referred to as the conscience of the legislature. So if you were on one side or the other, she would somehow mediate so that we could do the best for our community and for the people that she served. Anyway, she was honored. Her students truly respected her. She taught about injustice anywhere threatens injustice everywhere. Driver on I-10. In 1981, I was in town. I was planning to see her the next day so we could visit, and I got up that morning because I was going to see her that afternoon, and it was on the news. The governor came to her funeral. Many legislatures were there present. There were like 3,000 people. But anyway, she left a great legacy. She loved this library. She brought us here the very first time. I thank you very much for listening to my talk. If you have any questions or anything that you want to share about the 60s, please join in.